Well, hello, my name is Jim Royal. I'm a huge Beatles and Elvis Presley fan and basically classic rock in general. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Uh, Always do a thumbs up, that's most appreciated. And feel free to leave comments. I always enjoy reading them and I do my best to try to respond in a timely manner. Today I'm making a follow-up video to my Beatles U.S. Capitol cassettes. This is part 2, which would consist of the cassettes for Capitol and Apple, and this goes up through 2000. What's missing in here is 2003's Beatles Naked, which came out March of that year. That basically was a collection, a stripped down version of the Beatles' Let It Be album without the Phil Spector production, even though there was a lot of piecing things together. And then finally, the Beatles Love, which was for a Vegas show, and that was in, let's see, 2006. Let's see, I want to give you the exact date on this. That one was, yeah, November of 2006. Okay? So, just to start out here, in the 1960s, the albums, the cassettes, the ones that were albums from the 1960s would have a light blue spine like that. The Beach Boys would have it. These were all for the Capitol. So you would get the booklet, well, you get the insert, you get the sleeve that would have no booklet, and you'd get the cool white cassette, you'd get the traditional Capitol logo. Alright? There'd be the song listings on there. They would call it Program 1 and Program 2, and then they would also be listed on the back side. When I got into the Beatles, my parents had the Beatles 65 and Beatles 6 on vinyl in their personal collection. I later, when I was around 12, I bought the Red Album, 62 to 66 on vinyl. And then it was a couple of years later when I got this. This is the same model, but not the exact one. The Sound Design boombox, tape recorder, and radio. And my mom started giving me Beatles cassettes. Beatles were and still are my favorite group of all time. But that's what I used to listen to them on. Besides that, I was exposed to the Beatles through the radio. I also heard them, the Beatles cartoon. I got to listen to earlier stuff. There was a friend of the family named Jack, my dad's friend. He had the Beatles. He had recorded the White Album on Reel to Reel, which was really cool, and I heard Abbey Road. Other than that, I really wasn't, I didn't hear too much. So I'm going to show you the collection of where we left off. In part 1, we were basically at the Red and the Blue album in 1973. So why don't we get this ready for you? And I am going to show you the first one. And this first collection came out June of 1976. And it's called Rock and Roll. And this is a very nice tapes. The cover was entirely different than the ones that you're seeing right here. It had a 50s style cover. It looks kind of American graffiti-ish. That was what was popular at that time. There was a nostalgia thing. And the Capitol decided to market them very much like that. What you see here is, you see by 1980, which I think this was when it was, people were complaining about the cover because the Beatles were not the 50s, the Beatles were the 60s. So having hamburgers and fins on cars and 50s cars and stuff just wasn't what the Beatles time period was. So in 1980 they basically cut the double album in half. They had a part 1 and a part 2, and this is what you get. These collections were compilations of previously released material. They chose to the heavier side of the Beatles. And I am going to show you this one first. So that's pretty cool. And in the 70s, as you see, they have the black spine. Now these tapes are probably much later, because I remember even in the 90s, cassettes still being popular, and it was more affordable than CDs at the time. And I know a lot of kids were buying the these cassettes. But originally, this was a huge hit. It was #1, if I'm not mistaken, in 1976. And they even had singles, and it did very well. Okay, nothing in the booklet. Show you program 1. And these cassettes that I'm showing you, I basically bought them after I was done collecting. I stopped buying cassettes probably in 1987. I was starting to buy some vinyl again, and I was buying CDs at this point. There you go. Looks good. Okay. So the next release is the Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl. And this particular release came out May of 1977. And I never had this on cassette. I went to the library and I actually checked it out, and I taped it on cassette. But I never bought it. Very good, very good. I think this is probably a different cassette case. Usually they were black, not clear. But I do remember, though, later on they did have some clear ones, so it's entirely possible. And like I said, I just love the white. Okay. All right, that same year, they also had another collection, and that was the Beatles Love Songs. Look at that. That was another double album. So the prior year, they were rocking out. This year, they decided to have softer songs, songs about love. And this was released November of 1977. Double record, like I said. And I think in the cover here, Paul McCartney originally was where Ringo was, and they decided to change it up for the release. Some said that, you know, Paul was still on Capitol and the other Beatles weren't by this point, but I don't know. Anyway, it was done very well. Nice choice of songs there. See that? And for a double album, they were able to get it all on one cassette. Program 1 and Program 2. Again, no interesting booklet or anything. And I was really happy to pick these up. At the time, I didn't buy these collections. My mom kind of thought, well, you know, you already have these. You know, why do you need these? So it was kind of judged at the time. They weren't thought of necessarily in proper albums. They were just collections, songs that we already had. But they're nice collections. So this is the Beatles Rarities. I think this was March of 1980. I know the Brits had a different version of it. This is ours. This is really nice because what it does is it puts together different singles and songs that weren't on their regular albums, like The Inner Light. That was a B-side, George Harrison. Sgt. Pepper in Her Groove, that was a rare. Right at the end of Sgt. Pepper, you know, it was in the inner groove there. It just kept going back and forth on the early pressings for British Sgt. Pepper's. What do we have also on here? We've got a different version of I Am the Walrus, or, you know, a little slightly different. Across the Universe, You Know My Name, Look Up the Number. So again, this is one that I checked out at the library, and I thought it was cool. I liked it a lot. I ended up not buying it. There's also inside on the LP, there is a copy of the aborted, or at one point the recalled butcher cover. Yeah, let me show you part one. So here's, yeah, so in there, nice, right? Still have the traditional Capitol logo on there. And by this point, we're going into 1980. So, all right. So then after that, they came out with the Beatles Real Music. And this was basically soundtrack music from their films, A Hard Day's Night, Help, Magical Mystery Tour, the TV, then Yellow Submarine, and finally Let It Be. And this one was released in March of 1982. And it did okay. It did okay. It wasn't spectacular. It was kind of really unnecessary, but, you know, they were really grasping to get, you know, product out. And this was stuff that the Beatles probably weren't really happy with, but Capitol had full reign and they could do what they want here in the States at this point. Okay. All right. So later that year, they came out with a best of, and this was to celebrate 20 years, I think, from Let It Be. So they came out with the Beatles 20 Greatest Hits. This is the American version, and this one originally came out in October of 1982 here in the States. This is the British version. The song sequence was slightly different, but it was also to celebrate 20 years too. And I think that's pretty neat. So let's see. I have sheet music of this, which was cool when I was first starting to play guitar. About a year later I got this, so in '83. It's the track listing on there. This is the American version. And at this point, this is kind of cool. It's kind of just has information about the new technology, the XDR cassette player technology. So I think this one was probably later 80s that they were capitalizing this. It was just a new improved sound. Yeah, so that's cool. Look at that. And I'm going to show you the British one. All of these I got about 6 years ago to complete the collection. And this is the EMI Parlophone. So for me, this is a rare one, because I don't have too many things like this. I basically was sticking with American stuff. I was thinking, oh my God, now I want to collect those. And I was fortunate when I bought a lot of these on eBay. I got these pretty cheap considering probably what they're going for right now. And I remember, see it says see inlay card for details. That's just like my James Bond one that I bought back in the day. James Bond theme, movie themes. Now what's cool about this is you've got an inside booklet, which has a track listing. So that's pretty neat. Alright, well, what happened was in 1987, the Beatles decided, and Apple decided to have more control of their music. And they said, you know what, we're not going to be putting out these American compilations anymore. We're going to stick with the way that we originally had them. And that's what they did. So in 1987, they put out the UK versions of their albums. And then finally, they noticed that there was material that was left off of those albums. So they came out with Past Masters, Volume 1 and Volume 2. These would have been singles, you know, B-side to singles that were only, you know, singles, A-side, B-side, that didn't appear on any other album. You also had an EP like Long Tall Sally. Now this one, originally they were apart, and if I'm not mistaken, the release date on this was, yeah, it was March of 1988 for both of them. And it's a nice collection too, because, you know, the singles, they have, you know, they have the A-side, B-side, and a lot of times that's how the Beatles did things. Okay. Now you finally get into the clear tapes. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Pretty cool. And then here's part 2. Okay. And then we got a little booklet here. I'm trying to show it to you. Okay. So that's the first booklet. And then the second booklet is right here. This was from their last recording photo session, John's house. Alright, so that was originally released separately, but for some reason these combined. I think that's what they did later on. And cassettes were very affordable. Like I said, in the 90s, a lot of people were still buying them. Alright, so then what they did in 94, they came out with something really spectacular, and that's the Beatles live at the BBC. And this was basically recordings that were recorded specifically for the BBC. In some cases, unreleased songs, like I'll Be On My Way, which was an original from Lennon and McCartney. Sometimes songs that they would never perform, but were cover tunes that they would never record officially at EMI. A lot of that. And then there was some chatter, studio chatter, on radio there. So this one was released November of 1994, and it was a #1 album, and it is really amazing. I like the cardboard case that it has, and then it has the track listing like that. Try to look at it quickly. And it also has a booklet, probably very similar to the CD. So here's the booklet. Trying to have it focus. Anyway, there are a lot of little pictures in here. Look at that one. Pretty cool. You got the cassettes. Cassette 1 right here. And both of these look like that. You got another booklet of stuff. Hopefully it won't be blurry. Sorry. Yeah, so these are inserts talking about each song. Mark Lewison is doing it. So that's the first one. Mark Lewison was just really excellent. The Beatles recording sessions, I'd highly recommend it. He did a fabulous job with it. And then we've got the second one right here. There you go. Okay. Booklet again. Yeah. Alright, the following year, in 1995, they came out with a really exciting documentary. And they had 3 anthologies that showcased the Beatles. These were rare songs, demos. What else did they have? They had live recordings, alternate takes of songs, like Got to Get You Into My Life and stuff. Just a bunch of different really cool things. So this was released November of 1995, and it brought a whole new generation of people into the music for the Beatles. Klaus Voormann does all 3 covers. They're all double albums. And they had one new song called Free as a Bird on Volume 1. This was a John Lennon demo, piano demo that he did in the late 70s. Tapes were given to the 3 remaining Beatles to give to Paul, and from Yoko, gave her blessings, and they basically ended up putting out 2 songs, Free as a Bird and the song called Real Love. Look at that, isn't that cool? It's really nice. Alright, and then it would talk about each song. Mark Lewison was documenting that. So that's the first one. So we're gonna, so we're gonna do that. Again, I like the clear cassettes. I just think that they're really cool, really fun. Okay, and then we got the second one. I love that picture. Sir Joseph Lockwood, George Martin, the Beatles, and Brian Epstein in there. It's done very well. Alright, so then the next year they came out with Anthology 2. But what they did also is they came out with these singles, and I'm fortunate enough to show you one single is what they called it. And my old boss got this for me at the store, and it's a single, so it's a cassette single basically. They were very popular. In this case you can see it's $1.99. So this is for Real Love, another John Lennon 70s demo that the Beatles later got in the 90s. And they put their own, additional music on it and finished it off. It has Real Love and then Babies in Black live. So just cardboard, but really cool. And on both sides they actually have the same program, Real Love and Babies in Black live. Alright, so now I'm going to show you Anthology 2. We're almost done here. This is Anthology 2. Okay. And this was released March of 1996. Okay, I'm trying not to have it be so blurry. All right. All right. The booklet looks really cool. Won't show you everything, but I will show you some of it. Look at that, isn't that cool? Hey, Beatles. And then again, it talks about the track listing. So that's the first one. And then this is the second one. So they did a really good job, I thought. Really good. So the first one would have been up to 64. This one looks like went up to late 60 or early 68 across the universe. Okay. So then finally they had, from their anthologies, they had the last one. I think this is October of 96. So this was the last one. And this basically is the end of the Beatles up through 70. You got I, Me, Mine on there. Okay. Okay. Booklet. Some of these photos are, in some cases, the last photo session with the Beatles in August of '69. That's a cool picture, right? And then their Mad Day Out, I think it was, July of '68. Some of these photos, you can see they're wearing the same stuff. It's cool. So that's the first one. And then the second one Look at that. Look at these rare photos. I mean, gosh. I don't remember these. Okay. All right. So then in '99, they came out with a 30th anniversary of a Yellow Submarine, and what they did this time, it's the Beatles Yellow Submarine song track. So what the whole deal with this was, is they took out the George Martin Orchestra, which you could still have, which was side 2, and they basically put all of the songs that were in the movie, except I think A Day in the Life of the Beatles. So it was strictly Beatles. It was done very well, but they remixed it, okay, and that's different. This particular release in '99 came out, I'm going to give you the exact, it came out September of 1999, okay? And it's really good. I know at the time it was controversial because people were like, hey, you know, what's going on here? The songs sound a little different. Why are you changing them a little bit? You know, remixing them. And now, you know, there's no issue with it apparently, right? All right, look at that. Isn't that cool? Yeah, it is. All right. There's just a lot of pictures here. A lot of stuff. But anyway, that's that one. And then finally, the big one. This is the last one I'm going to show today. This is the Beatles 1. And this has 27 Beatle #1 singles. This was released November of 2000. It was one of the biggest releases in the first decade of the new century, which is incredible for a band that had already broken up 30 years prior, right? Which is incredible in itself. This replaced the 1982 release of the Beatles' 20 Greatest Hits. There might be little track listing differences with the British and the U.S. This to me looks like the British one. Okay? Again, you got the clear one. Now, I'm not sure if the Beatles' Naked, Let It Be Naked, or Love were released on cassette. I would imagine that they were. I'm willing to bet they were, but I don't think anything really after that came out on cassette. And I just have not been able to get those. Yeah, look at that. See, they've got some singles, pictures in here and stuff. Anyway, that's my video. I hope you enjoyed it. And thank you. You have a great day. Take care.